and welcome back. My name is Yana and you're watching Behind the Scenes of the Forgotten Magic of Bulgaria. The Forgotten Magic of Bulgaria is a one-woman theatre show based on Bulgarian mythology and folklore, a little bit of Scottish mythology and folklore, and the ways that they can interact with each other and influence one another. Today we're going to talk about using music in theatre to tell a story and to create a certain kind of atmosphere. Now, usually when I create theatre shows, I also write songs for them to help me tell the story. In this particular show, it's a little bit different because I'm not only using things that I've written, I'm using quite a lot of traditional or popular musical motifs and songs and that kind of music. And there is also one particular song that I've decided to use which existed before the show was conceived, but I feel that it fits really well. And this song is about fairies. So we've talked about quite a few Bulgarian magical creatures, and I think it's time to pay a little bit of attention to the Scottish ones, and in this case also I guess Irish ones, because they do overlap quite a bit. So the song is about fairies. I wrote it, I believe, a couple of years ago for a specific Bulgarian holiday which is connected to fairies and woodland nymphs and herbs and nature and the forest in general, which is called Den. It's a day on which it's considered that herbs have much better medicinal powers, and like I said, it's sort of related to fairies and magical creatures as well. And it also happens to be my name day. So in Bulgaria we celebrate days connected to your name, and certain ones, some people even celebrate more than they celebrate their birthday, so it can be quite an important thing. I have a few days like that throughout the year. It's not very clear for the name Yana kind of which one you should use, because there's a few days related to that name, but of course I chose the one that is about magic and fairies, and that's on the 24th of June. So usually on the 24th of June I try to do something special for the holiday. I've recorded some videos, I sometimes have a photo shoot that's about flowers and fairies and magical things. And this was one of those projects, writing a song about fairies. But since I had before that particular event written and filmed a very light-hearted, very pretty video with fairies, this time I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I went a lot darker with it. And as most of you probably know, we kind of think, when we hear the word fairy, we kind of think of something very good and very beautiful and very positive, but actually fairies in folklore can be very dark and absolutely terrifying. And in Scottish and Irish mythology, there are a lot of scary stories related to them, in which they kidnap humans and very often replace humans with changelings, which are sometimes they are other fairies in some versions, but they can also just be these creatures that just wither and die, and that they're not really human, that they're not real. Sometimes they're not even really alive. So very, very scary stories related to fairies. And so with that particular song I did go quite dark, and I didn't use my own lyrics. I went and researched existing poems about fairies because I thought, and I was right, that there would probably be some classic poems that would fit that vibe very well. And what I found was, Scottish audiences will excuse me here because it's not a Scottish poet, it's an Irish one. What I found was a poem by William Butler Yeats called The Stolen Child, which I think captures very well what fairies are, because They are very much shades of grey. They, like Bulgarian samudivi, which are our kind of woodland spirits and nymphs. They can be good, they can be bad. Most of the time they are somewhere in between. They are very much just not human, and they can be quite creepy. So I think this poem captures that very well in terms of atmosphere. I will read you the poem first, and then I will share a little bit about how I wrote the music for that song that is also going to be used in the show to create the atmosphere that I wanted. So forgive me any mispronunciations here as usual, especially this is like, you know, when it's slightly old-fashioned English sometimes. I'm sure I'll make a lot of mistakes, but this is the original poem by Yeats. Where dips the rocky highland of Sleuthwood in the lake, there lies a leafy island, where flapping herons wake the drowsy water rats. There we've hid our fairy vats, full of berries and the reddest stolen cherries. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wave of moonlight glosses the dim grey sands with light, far off by furthest rosses we footed all the night, weaving olden dances, mingling hands and mingling glances, till the moon has taken flight. To and fro we leap and chase the frothy bubbles, while the world is full of troubles and anxious in its sleep. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star, we seek for slumbering trout, and whispering in their ears, give them unquiet dreams, leaning softly out from ferns that drop their tears over the young streams. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. Away with us he's going, the solemn-eyed. He'll hear no more the lowing of the calves on the warm hillside, or the kettle on the hob sink peace into his breast, or see the brown mice bob round and round the oatmeal chest. For he comes, the human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than he can understand. Now, I don't know what you think, but I find this poem both eerie and sad, and at the same time really magical and fascinating, because clearly the fairies have lured this child into their world and he's never going to return. You can imagine this little boy or this little girl who, it says, with sullen eyes, who is probably lacking something in the real world, probably understands that the real world is full of sorrow and full of bad things happening, and is dreaming of a world that is more magical and free of very human things, such as greed, for example, such as cruelty. But at the same time, it leans towards being a metaphor for dying young, dying while you're still in that very innocent phase of your life. So it's quite creepy, but it's also very beautiful, the descriptions of the fairy world and what they do, how they dance, and how they interact with nature. So it's left very ambiguous whether the fairy world is better than the human one. So I think it's a very specific feeling that you get from reading this poem. So when I found it, I really, really liked it, and I decided to use it to create this song. So then the next thing was obviously to come up with the kind of sound, the kind of music that would fit the lyrics well, so that I could still relate that feeling and not lose the atmosphere. And so when I compose, one of the first things, I usually just use chords. I don't sit down and write notes. And the first thing is to kind of find the main chords that I want to use that create a certain feeling. And I think most people are aware of how major chords are usually quite happy. So for example, these ones sound quite happy, quite cheerful, whereas minor chords sound a little bit sadder or more ominous sometimes, or just a little bit harsher depending on what you do with them. So for this song, right, I decided to go with a set of minor chords to kind of have that eerie, magical, mystical feeling, and a little bit sad and a little bit creepy. And also, we want to think about the tempo and just the general sound. So if I went like this, that's a little bit scary, but it's quite dynamic. I don't think it's right for fairies. So instead, we could go with something like this. Which is a little bit almost hypnotic, and you could easily imagine fairies dancing, even like touching the strings. It's almost like their little feet kind of just very daintily stepping on the ground, or almost not stepping on the ground, maybe they're floating. So this is the rhythm that I went with. Right? And so from here, it's about trying to fit the lyrics well to the melody, because this particular poem doesn't, it's a little bit complex in how it's written, and I didn't use all of it. I skipped quite a few things in order to, well, first of all, not have a song that's 10 minutes long, but also to make it fit into the music. So we're gonna start here. Right, so I want it to sound a little bit strange. We floated all the night, weaving golden dances, mingling hands and mingling glances, till the moon has taken flight. To and fro we leap and chase the frothy bubbles, while the world is full of troubles, and it's anxious in its sleep. Yeah, a little bit of a change there, I think, at the end. And you see, immediately we have this magical atmosphere, but underneath there's almost this sense of danger, sense of threat, or just something sad happening. And then we get to the refrain, where we're actually going to talk to the child, so it should be really, we need to lure this child to come with us. So we're gonna go... Come away, you human child, to the waters and the wilds, with a fairy hand in hand. Come away, you human child, to the waters and the wild, to a world more full of weeping than you can understand. And this is how this song sounds. And this is how we can use music and different chords to kind of complement the lyrics, make sure that the lyrics are coming to the front, and this way we are relating the story to the audience a little bit better and with more emotion and in a beautiful way through music. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that if you are anywhere near Edinburgh, you're going to come and watch the show on the 28th of May 2022 at the Scottish Storytelling Centre in Edinburgh at 7:30 in the evening. I hope to see you there, but if not, hopefully we're going to have a recording going online as well. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!